Hey y'all, my name is Mare. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my March reading wrap up where I talk about the 17 books that I read last month. So if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe down below. I'm constantly uploading videos such as this one with monthly wrap-ups, TBR games, reading vlogs, and more that you won't want to miss. Now, starting off with some statistics for last month, I did end up reading 17 books, like I said, for a total of 6,107 pages. I listened to a total of 7.5 hours worth of audiobooks, and my average compiled rating was a 3.93. And then lastly, breaking it down by genre, I read 6 adult books, 1 middle grade, 3 new adult, and 7 young adult. Alright, now we can just launch into all the books that I read last month, which is crazy to me because I was looking at my list and seeing I marked these books read in March, but I feel like I read them 5 years ago. So first up, I did in fact read Station 11, much to my surprise, in the month of March. So I read Station 11 for my Reading Like an Enneagram 3 video, which I will link above and down below for you to go check out if you missed it. Station 11 is a dystopian novel following the events of a pandemic. So it's definitely very realistic and timely to today where we are currently in a pandemic, but I didn't find it too hard to read. I mean, there were definitely some difficult moments when I was reading this book, but overall I really enjoyed it and I liked how it had a very hopeful and uplifting message by the end of the story. I did end up giving this one 4 stars. I just personally didn't think that this one would stick out very long in my memory, and I was right because, again, I forgot that I read this in March. So while I did enjoy my time while I was reading it, it just doesn't stick out long term for me, but I definitely would recommend it if you're looking for an easy to read literary fiction novel. It's definitely very digestible and easy to get into. The next book that I read in March was Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, and this one I gave 5 stars. I actually do have an entire dedicated reading vlog to this book if you want to go check it out, but be careful because it is completely filled with spoilers. I think there's 10 seconds of that video that does not have a spoiler in it. I loved it, 5 stars. It might be my new favorite Cassandra Clare book, and I don't say that lightly because I mean, if you can look at my book card, there's a lot of Cassandra Clare on there. She is someone that I owe my love of reading to. I have been reading her books since middle school, which is a very long time. For this to be one of my favorites is pretty dang impressive. I think that Cassandra Clare does a wonderful job of just expanding her craft with each and every book, and this book was just everything to me, and I don't know if that's just because I love the concept of The Last Hours or if I just love Matthew Fairchild, but it's honestly probably a little bit of both. So this is the second book in the Last Hours trilogy, which follows the events of the Infernal Devices. So if you have not read the Infernal Devices, don't read The Last Hours until you have done so. I would honestly recommend reading the Shadowhunter books in publication order, but that is not what this video is. I'm not here to tell you how to read the Cassandra Clare books. I just wanted to say I can't really talk too much about what the contents of this book are because you have to read like 20 books to get there. So if you've read The Infernal Devices, I would say go ahead. The Last Hours is great. It follows the children of the characters in The Infernal Devices. So, I mean, I love it because I just love The Infernal Devices, and Will Arundel is my everything. And of course, I loved it. So good. That ending was so mean, but I'm kind of happy with it at the same time. So I'm definitely looking forward to Chain of Thorns when it comes out in 2022. Okay, so the next 2 books that I read, please buckle in for my hot take, for my probably very bad opinion. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. We gotta talk. So I'll start off on an optimistic note. I'll talk about Six of Crows because I did actually really enjoy this book. Six of Crows is a duology that takes place in the Grishaverse, so I definitely do recommend reading the original trilogy, Shadow and Bone, and then launching into the duology. But basically, there's this world full of Grisha who have elemental magic, and in the Six of Crows duology in particular, it's following a cast of Grisha as well as normal town people, I guess I would call them, and they are going on a heist mission. So it has a found family trope and it has a really fun heist dynamic. I like Six of Crows, okay? The first 200 pages were very slow and painful, but I did like the characters at the end of the day. Jesper and Wylan writes. I didn't love it. I gave it initially 5 stars because the ending was fantastic. One of the best endings I think I've ever read in a book. Then we got to Crooked Kingdom, okay? So I ended up lowering my rating for Six of Crows from a 5-star to a 4-star because I had a lot of reflection after reading Crooked Kingdom. I was like, you know what, Meredith, you really didn't enjoy the first 200 pages of Six of Crows. Like, you were literally wanting that to be over the entire time, and you didn't really enjoy it until you got to a certain part. So that is not a 5-star read. And it really was highlighted for me when I got into Crooked Kingdom because, guys, I'm sorry if you like like this book series, okay? I don't hate Six of Crows. My hatred is only for Crooked Kingdom because I gave it a 1.5 star rating. This is why I said to buckle up for my unpopular opinion, because I scoured Goodreads for reviews that were similar to mine and they were not plentiful, okay? There were not a lot of negative reviews for Crooked Kingdom, which is fine. I totally get it. I'm in the unpopular opinion here, but I hated this book. This book made me hate reading, and I hate saying that because, again, I really enjoyed Six of Crows, but it was just so boring. It was so incredibly painful for me to get through because I need a plot. I need more than just characters, and I can respect that this book is very character driven, but when you have an incredible ending like Six of Crows had and you don't really explore it in the sequel, why did you make the sequel? That's kind of my opinion on it. But again, I don't mean any disrespect to you if you like Crooked Kingdom. If this is your favorite series, please ignore me. I totally get it. These characters are awesome and I wish that I liked them all, but I think that Leigh Bardugo does do a great job of expanding on her characters and making you feel like they're real people. I just might have hated some of those people if I found them in real life. Like Kaz Brecker, we would square up, okay? I did not love him, but again, I really love Jesper. I really love Wylan. I liked Nina. Matthias, I just didn't care for it. It's not my thing. I don't think the Grishaverse is my thing, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree. I think Leigh Bardugo is very talented, but also, girl, give me some flavor. Give me some plot to hang on to because I cannot read 500 pages of a sequel to a book I already didn't love that is just droning on about how characters interact with each other. Like, I need a little bit more. Moving on from controversial opinions, I think that Crooked Kingdom was actually my lowest rated book in the entire month of March, and all my other books were pretty well rated. They were all like above 3 stars. So talking about a more pleasant experience that I had, Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. I read this book for my YA Fantasy Arc reading blog, which will be linked in the cards and in the description for you if you missed it. I really enjoyed this book. It's a YA Fantasy Peter Pan retelling following Wendy, and Wendy's brothers disappeared when she was younger and the police never found out what happened to them, so they're presumed missing. And one day Peter Pan comes into her life and she starts to unravel this mystery that surrounds her brothers from all those years ago. And I really enjoyed it. I think that it definitely leans on the younger side of YA, but there's nothing wrong with that. I would just note that if you are expecting it to be more sophisticated than it is, the writing style is very simplistic, but that also means that it's super easy to get into. I thought that the mystery was really well plotted. I thought the characters were all pretty believable. My main critique with this one, and again, I go more in depth in my actual reading blog, is just that Wendy sometimes didn't seem to act her age, but I really enjoyed this one. There are some critiques that I have, of course, but there's nothing really inherently wrong with it. I think that it's an easy read. I thought that the mystery was great and that the characters were wonderful. The next 3 books that I'm going to talk about, I read in my Easter eggs, pick my TBR. So if you haven't seen that video, again, it'll be in the cards and in the description. But the first book that I ended up reading for that reading blog was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is a book that follows a young girl named Avery who's in high school, and she is told that she has won the inheritance of this guy who is dead, and she doesn't know him, okay? So that's the weird part. She's like, I don't know this man. Why did he just offer me billions and billions of dollars? But she basically has to go live at his old house with his entire family to actually win that inheritance. And it's really fun. There's a lot of really great dynamics between her and the brothers in the house. I think that if you enjoy Paper Princess and Truly Devious, this is the book for you. And I know that's not like a synonymous recommendation, but Paper Princess has the Cinderella elements, but it has the mystery elements of Truly Devious that I really love. So I really think that if you enjoy both of those books like myself, you're really going to love The Inheritance Games. I ended up giving this one 4 stars and I cannot wait for the sequel to come out. The second book that I read for that reading blog was The Ravens, and I gave this one a 4.5 star rating. I really enjoyed this one. It follows 2 girls in a sorority at a college, but the sorority is full of witches. So you're following a freshman who just pledged to the sorority and she's sort of figuring out her magic. And you're also following another perspective of a girl who is striving to become president for that sorority in the following year. So they have an interesting dynamic. They sort of hate each other. And I loved just seeing their character development individually and their interactions with each other. There's a few critiques that I have with this one as well that just didn't make it a perfect 5-star read for me. It had a really weird romance subplot. I had 2 of those actually. And I just wanted a little bit more from the book. I thought that the magic scenes in this were so cool, but we didn't get enough of them. And I think that if I just had more exploration of the magic system, this book would have been absolutely perfect for me. But again, I really recommend this one if you like spooky, witchy, dark academia vibes. This one is perfect for you and I highly recommend it. The last book that I read for that reading vlog in particular was Lore by Alexandra Bracken, and guys, this one was 5 stars for me. I absolutely loved this. So Lore is kind of a Hunger Games / Percy Jackson hybrid, and it is so good. Lore follows a young girl named Lore, and every 7 years there is something called the Aegon, where gods are sent back down to earth to become mortal, and basically anyone who kills them can actually steal their power. However, they'll actually have to compete in the next Aegon in 7 years. And Lore gets wrapped up in this year's Aegon despite not wanting to, and it just sort of takes off from there, and it is so much fun. I think there's a lot of really feminist themes, dark themes. It's definitely very gory or more intense than a typical YA fantasy, so definitely be cautious if you're gonna pick it up and you don't do well with gore. I personally don't do well with gore, but I thought that it was fine. There are just one or two scenes in particular that kind of was like, oh, that's gross, but also I feel like it contributed to the overall tone of the book, and it really was necessary to have those moments. Definitely a new YA fantasy favorite for me, and one that I'm never going to shut up about, so be warned of that now. The next book that I read in March was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and I read this with Christine from Any Endings. We actually did an entire reading sprint live show where we were going to just read the book together, but we ended up starting and finishing it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I believe Christine did as well. We had very similar opinions on it. So it's about this nanny who is writing a letter to a lawyer, and you're sort of reflecting back on her past and jumping into the present with these letters throughout the story. And at the beginning of the book, you know that a child is dead. You don't know which child, you don't know how, but you do know that the nanny is accused of murdering the kid. So you're taken back into her perspective when she first applied for this job, and then how she actually got it, and her experience at the actual place. There was one really good twist in here that I loved. It wasn't the most shocking thing I've ever read, but it was definitely something I couldn't have guessed, and I really did like the ending. I think that it made sense, but it was also something that I couldn't have put together myself, but it also made just perfect sense because of how Ruth Ware plotted the book. So I just thought it was a really solid thriller. Is it my favorite that I've ever read? No, but it definitely kept me engaged. I mean, I read it in a single sitting pretty much, and I would definitely recommend it if you want sort of a, is it paranormal, is it not paranormal book? It was really, really fun, and I'm definitely going to be reading more by Ruth Ware in the future. The next 3 books that I read, I'm actually not going to give y'all my thoughts on because I do have a very ambitious video coming up next week, hopefully, so you will see it very soon. I'm sure you can guess what the theme is when you see the 3 books that I'm talking about, but the first that I read was The Death of Vivek Oji, then I read Mexican Gothic, and I also read Leave the World Behind. The next book that I read in March was The Project by Courtney Summers, and I give this one a 4.25 star rating. Very specific, I know, but that's just how I feel about it, okay? So The Project follows 2 sisters whose parents died in a car accident, and you're following 2 different timelines. You're following the present day with Lo, who is the younger sister, and she was actually comatose after this accident, and then you're following B in the past timeline, who is Lo's older sister, who abandoned her for a cult when she was resurrected back to life from her coma. So it's definitely an exploration of cults and how people are susceptible to them, and I personally really, really liked it. I thought the execution was great, and Courtney Summers is definitely a very talented writer. My only issues with this were I wanted a little bit more in terms of pacing from the climax to the actual resolution of the story, and I also don't know if I would necessarily categorize this book as young adult. I think for my purposes, I'm categorizing this as new adult because Lo is 19, and the things that happen in this book are definitely more so on the older end of YA. It's not that I think that YA books should be restricted from these darker topics, but I think that this book would have just benefited more if it was categorized as new adult or categorized as adult, and then Courtney Summers was really able to explore these themes in a deeper capacity. I just feel like it was very limited by the YA scope, and I don't know if I would necessarily recommend the project to everyone because I know that it has been very controversial in terms of ratings. Some people really, really love it, but it seems to be the minority of people, and most people have been giving it 2-3 star reviews at most. Do I recommend it? No, but also I really liked it myself, so maybe you could too. This one is just getting a lot of heat, and I think that if the premise interests you, definitely go ahead and pick it up. I just think that people are going to either love it or be disappointed, and I don't know how to articulate who to recommend this to. The next book that I read was Dirty Headlines by LJ Shen, and I know, guys, I read a shirtless man book. I'm so excited to talk about it today because I don't think I've ever read one of these before, but this was gifted by my friend Naima, and she's been begging me to read Dirty Headlines ever since she got it for my birthday in 2021. which was in August. So it's been a long time that I've owned this book, but I'm glad that I finally got around to it because it has inspired me to read more romances. Did I love this one? No, I gave it 3 stars, but it definitely left this place in my heart where I'm like, you know what? I could get down with some romances. It just might not be by LJ Shen. It was interesting. I think that's the best way I can describe this book. I enjoyed some aspects of it, but the beginning, oh my god, I was so scared because there's just a lot of cheesy moments in this book. I did not personally like the main character, Jude. I thought she was very quirky, not like other girls, which is fine, but I was just really annoyed by some of the things that she said, and it really took me out of the story every time she brought up something kind of silly, and I was like, girl, why are you thinking about this? I also hated the epilogue too. I hate when romance books do that thing in the epilogue. You know what I'm talking about if you've read it, but like I just hated that. It's so unnecessary to me. I would say I really enjoyed the middle half to the end of this book, except for the epilogue, because I didn't think that I was going to be so invested in the story, but I actually ended up really liking and caring for these characters. Even if Jude did annoy me every other page, I still wanted the best for her. So Dirty Headlines follows a woman named Jude who hooks up with this guy, and then she later finds out on her first day of her new job that that guy is actually her boss. So the next few books that I read were all part of Mel, Christine, Jaleesa's, and Kristen's 24-hour readathon, which I failed, okay? I was really thinking that I could do the most at the beginning of this readathon. I was ready to go. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna sleep. I'm gonna read for 24 hours straight. I'm gonna vlog it. No, there's no vlog coming because I gave up around hour 17. However, I did get lots of reading done, and I did actually finish 3 books that I want to talk about with y'all. So the first that I read was Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and this is actually told completely in poetry. I ended up listening to the audiobook while I physically read it, which was a really great experience. I highly recommend doing so if you can. But Long Way Down follows a young boy whose brother was recently killed, and he's always been told there are certain rules that whoever kills his brother, he has to go get revenge on. And it's really interesting because this book is actually told in the span of 1 minute, and you're also in a very isolated setting of an elevator. And I don't want to give too much away because this book you can read in about an hour or 2, and it's not something that I really want to get into because if I tell you any more of the synopsis, you're gonna be like, okay, I've read the book. But I will say that I really did like this one. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was super impactful, and I think that it's going to be really impactful for younger readers. It has a lot of really important themes talking about gun violence and grief and how to grieve, and I really do recommend this to anyone, especially younger readers, like I said, just because I think that they'll get the most emotional impact out of this. But honestly, I really did like this book, and I highly recommend it to everyone. The second book that I read for that 24-hour readathon was Broken Prince by Erin Watt, and this is the sequel to Paper Princess. I love this series. I am unapologetically garbage for it, okay? Broken Prince was everything to me. I gave this 5 stars. Is it actually worthy of a 5-star rating? I don't know, but it's a lot of freaking fun. And so for that reason alone, it deserves every single star that is possible in Goodreads, okay? So Paper Princess follows a young girl named Ella who gets taken to live at this house because the dad of these brothers knew her father. And so it's just a really fun series. It's so messy, it's so drama filled, but it reads like reality TV, and Broken Prince was no different. I loved this book because we got a point of view that I wasn't expecting. I actually don't remember if Paper Princess had multiple point of views, but I think it was only Ella's perspective. It's been a while since I read it, but I really liked the additional point of view in Broken Prince, and I just thought it added another fun layer to the story. There's a lot of outlandish things that happen in this book, but I loved every single second, and you betcha that I ordered the 3rd book as soon as I finished this one because I am garbage for it, okay? So if you want a fun new adult romance series to start, Paper Princess. It is a mess, and we love it here. So the last book that I read in March was actually a graphic novel, and that was The Prince and the Dressmaker, and this was so cute. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely highly recommend it. It's a really quick read, and I love the art style in it, but The Prince and the Dressmaker follows a prince and a dressmaker. I don't want to give too much about this one away either because of how short it is, but I thought it was really stinking cute, and I definitely recommend this one as well. We did it, y'all. We talked about the 17 books that I read in March. Thank you so much for watching this video if you made it this far. I really do appreciate you. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. It would really support me and my channel, and also subscribe down below if you haven't yet for more book-related content. I do have all my social medias linked down below, as well as ways that you can support my channel if you're interested. And until the next video, I'll see you later. Bye, y'all!